Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are around the world. Welcome. I'm Suzana Mihajlovic. You all know me. Welcome to the Millionaire Roundtable. I cannot tell you how I am feeling right now. I have a very, very, very special guest to introduce to you all. You all know who that is. You're all here to see this very, very special, incredible, amazing person. Brian Proctor is Bob Proctor's eldest son, eldest child, and he is somebody that is very, very, very dear to me. I met Brian a few years ago as a Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant in Toronto, probably would have been about 5 years ago. And one of the things that you would hear Bob Proctor say about his son is that Brian is the nicest person that you could ever meet. And if you ever had an issue with Brian, then there must be a problem with you. And when I got to know Brian, I tell you now, he is not only the nicest person, one of the wisest and most intelligent people that I've known. He's always had time for me when I've had a question, when I've had challenges in my own business. Brian has always made the time to support me, to be honest with me, to help me with the next steps. He's also the author, or he wrote the foreword of mine and McKinney Smith's book, Renewing Your Mind, on behalf of his father. And he's going to be here with us today. I'm so excited, especially for you guys, to talk about his book that he has recently released. And the book is called My Father Knew the Secret. Before I get Brian on board with us, I just want you to know a little bit about Brian and his background and the incredible things that he has achieved himself. So Brian was born in 1961 in Toronto, and that was the same year that his legendary father, Bob Proctor, was given the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this began Bob Proctor, his father's 60-year journey into personal development. For close to 30 years, Brian worked alongside his father as he taught from some of the world's largest stages. And I remember Brian saying to me that his father was his very, very best friend. Brian found his niche in marketing and business development. In the very early years of the internet, Brian originated an idea to build an email list to create value and a platform for his father to share his teachings. This idea set Bob Proctor's company up for success by opening the door early to email list building, long before that was the industry standard. As an online marketer, Brian was consistently the top affiliate in large product launches with joint ventures, bringing in millions in commissions and giving many entrepreneurs their first opportunities with a large audience to share their products and services. Brian attributes his success to the lessons he has learned over the years from his father in creating lasting relationships. And today, Brian is self-employed and lives with his beautiful, incredible, amazing wife, Corey, at the south end of Puget Sound in Washington State. And he's living his dream of a life well spent near the water and enjoying nature at its finest. Are you all ready? I hope you are. Okay, so I'm about to introduce the incredible, amazing, what do I say? Fabulous Brian Proctor, who's a dear, dear person in my life, is my friend. And just before I do that, if you want to click the link above so that we can see your name when you write comments, I'll be checking the comments as we go along. So get ready, buckle up, and let's get started. Let's all give incredible Brian Proctor a warm, warm welcome. Brian. Hello.
Hi, Suzana. Thank you very much. That was very kind.
Welcome. It is so good to see you. So good to see you.
It is really good to be here.
Thank you. And thank you for your time. I know how busy you are with business, with your new book, My Father Knew the Secret, with the beautiful family, children, grandchildren. thank you so much for your time and for being with us today.
I'm glad to be here. It's always it's just always great to see you, Suzana.
Thank you. Likewise. We've got quite a few people sending us message. So there's morning beautiful from Paula in Melbourne. Good evening from Canada. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. There are so many people that want to see you. So, Brian, it is your incredible father's birthday coming up next week. It's
Sure.
been just over a year since our incredible Bob Proctor, who is also your father, transitioned into the spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm.
And you have something very, very special to share. You have written a book, My Father Knew the Secret. So tell us a little bit more. Tell us a bit more about, first of all, tell us a little bit more about you, about how it was growing up with our greatest legend in human potential, Bob Proctor.
Well, it's funny. That was always kind of the big question I got at any seminar that we ever ran is, what's it like being Bob Proctor's son? And I'm really proud of this book that we've just launched. It is something I've been working on for probably 4 years. Dad was around when I started writing the book, and we had some really good discussions around it. I said to him, I really wanted to write a book about all the lessons I've learned from him over my lifetime. I had 60 years with him, and I was around right when he started in the personal development field. So I've seen the entire track of his life, and he taught me a lot of really special things. And so I started writing this book. I thought it'd be fun. I thought it would be an interesting take for people to read, seeing a different side of the Bob Proctor that you're used to seeing. You're used to seeing the Bob Proctor on stage. You don't really get to know who the man is. And so this book was really, that's the reason for it. It was to show what Bob Proctor's like as a father, as a friend, as a business partner. Dad and I were so close. It was heartbreaking when he left. And it took me a little while after he passed away before I could start writing again. It was just really, really tough. And when you get the book, you'll see the first chapter is the first thing I wrote after he passed. It was probably a good couple of months afterwards. And it was kind of the raw moments of the last, month or 2 months that he had here in this world. And it was really special times. We got to, the one thing I have zero regrets over, Dad and I got to say everything we wanted to say to each other before he left. And when he left, I was actually holding his hand. I mean, I was right there with him. It was profound. And so this book is, I'm really proud of it, Suzana. It's, the book is not about me. It is truly about my father. And that's why I'm so happy to get on it and promote it anywhere and everywhere. I hope everybody watching this will please go and get the book. It's available on Amazon. You go to brianproctor.com. I think you're going to put up a link or something. So, I really hope you'll go out and get the book. It's substantial. It's not a little book. It is about 362 pages. So
Wow.
there's a fair bit to it. And I did it because I really wanted to carry on his legacy in a real unique way. And that's why I wrote the book. It shows a side of him that nobody has really seen. You'll have some familiar stories for sure, but there'll be a lot of stories that you haven't heard before. And I wrote it in a way that I tell a story, a lesson that he taught me, and then at the end of the story, I have consider points, and they're points to consider on how you can apply that in your own life. So the great thing about the way this book is structured is that there are real lessons from Bob Proctor as a father. So it's good lessons. It's the real meat of honestly who I became and why I became the kind of person that I am. I hope everybody really enjoys reading it. I've got a lot of great stories in that, and I'm happy to share some of them with you.
Absolutely. I'm sure I would love to hear them, and I know everybody else would love to hear it. There's comments. I'm excited for this. What a privilege to be here, people are saying. And I'll have my copy. It's amazon.com, brianproctor.com. I will put the link in. And as you were sharing that, Brian, I was just thinking, I mean, I was privileged to know your father just for a little while, nowhere near as well as some people were lucky to know him. And I was thinking, as I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about my very first time where I sat right next to him and the profound impact that he had. But as you were sharing just now, I just, it's no, like you turned out just incredible. Knowing you, everyone talks about Bob Proctor, but knowing you are honestly, one of the most genuine, loving, intelligent, wisest people that I've ever come across.
Yeah.
And people ask me the question, well, is Bob Proctor real? Or is that just him on stage? And, I just say, well, you just need to meet his son, Brian, to know that he is the real deal. And I remember you saying, in some of our conversations that we've had, well, he's like that everywhere. What you see is the real Bob. Which is absolutely, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he really was what you see online or on stage. That is who he was. It's a funny little thing. My brother has often been asked, what's it like with, Bob Proctor as a father? My brother's answer was, well, every night at dinner is a seminar. That's how Raymond looked at things. But, who he was on stage is who he was at home as well.
Wow.
And he lived what he taught. Like, he truly lived it. And he treated everyone around him in such a special way. I know I'm fortunate. I know I am, that he was my father and what I learned from him. And the great thing is that, what Dad taught me, I was able to teach my kids. And now I have grandchildren, and the grandchildren are being taught the same thing. And it's magnificent. It's just great to see it carry on. What Dad did for our family is he changed the course of everything because he started to study this material. When I was in Toronto, it was about 2 weeks ago, and I was up there for a nephew's wedding. Little Brian, we call him. My nephew was named after me, so I had to be there for that wedding. And when I was there, I was doing a webinar for somebody, and I asked Linda, my dad's wife, I said, hey, can I get that Think and Grow Rich book that Dad had? Can I just have that just for the webinar? She said, of course. And so she went and got it and brought it down to me. And it was holding that book. It was like, wow, I could feel my father's energy. And for anybody here that has seen my father in anything, he is forever holding that, Think and Grow Rich book. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Well, this book was given to him in 1963 by his brother, my Uncle Al. And that book, you knew he studied that every day. When I held it, it's held together with a rubber band. And when you take the rubber band off and you open it up, the whole book will fall apart. You have to be really careful with it. And Dad never wanted it fixed. He'd never wanted a new copy. This was the copy that changed his life. And, one of the great lessons with him was that you don't just study something and then move on. He studied that book every single day. He knew it. Honestly, I think he knows that, or he knew that book better than anybody. And it's because he actually studied the book page by page by page every day for 60 years. You're going to become very good at something if you study that deeply. And that's really what he was all about.
Yeah. And Brian, I remember him saying that he wouldn't just study a chapter, it would be a paragraph that he would study for days and days and days over and over again.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah. And do you feel that was the and I was thinking of that book last night, actually, because I was so excited. I was like a little kid about seeing you again, being with you, sharing you with the world, sharing your book, My Father Knew the Secret, with the world. And I was thinking about that book, and I was thinking, gee, I wonder, I thought maybe Linda has it or one of you. And yeah. So you would say that was, and Bob, I remember Bob saying that was the primary thing that started to change his life, Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
It was the first book he ever read. He'll say that. I think it was probably 27 years old. It was the first book he ever read, and he never didn't read it. I mean, he read it from the day it was given to him. He read it every day. That's commitment. That is commitment. And his life changed dramatically. And then obviously he went on to teach the material. And he just honed his skills and he gave it his all. I mean, he was in the personal development industry when it was not an industry, when it was a tough sell. Today, everybody wants to get into personal development. Everybody's studying personal development, which is amazing. But back in the 60s, 70s, it wasn't that popular. And he was so committed to teach this material that he would do whatever it took until he could get through to people and teach those lessons and change their lives. That's what was important to him. And so, Suzana, what I feel so good about with this book is that I know in my heart that this book can change your life, because those lessons, it's not me teaching. It's lessons of what Dad did for me, what he taught me for my entire 60 years that he was with me, and how I use those lessons to live the life that I'm living. I'm living a wonderful life. I live exactly where I want to live. I'm married to a magnificent woman who you mentioned, Corey.
She is gorgeous, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, I look at my life and I think I'm living a charmed life. Well, I'm living a charmed life because I took those lessons from Dad and I acted on them and I implemented them in my life. And I know that if you take the lessons that I've written here, and the stories that I share, and you apply them in your life, it'll never be the same again.
So the book, My Father Knew the Secret, get onto Amazon as soon as this interview finishes and grab yourself a copy. My copy is coming this morning. It was a bit delayed because I've been in Indonesia, but it's coming. I received a message. It's coming today, so I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
You're going to have to send me a picture with it when you get it.
I will. It'll be all over social media. I promise you. And I will be sending you a picture today. So, yeah, definitely. And I can't wait. I'm going to be spending this weekend reading My Father Knew the Secret, because I know, the power of Bob Proctor. I've experienced it myself. And having Brian write this book is just a gift to the world. Brian, I am so fascinated, intrigued, interested in what is your favorite childhood memory of your incredible dad as a child? You probably have so many. It's probably a difficult question.
Gosh. So as soon as you asked that, nobody's ever asked me that question. I have a lot of favorite childhood memories. Probably I could lay two out real quickly. One of them would be, Dad often talked about the house in Chicago, on Maplewood Lane in Glenview, Illinois. That's where he talks about being in the den and dreaming up what he was going to do in this world and to be in all the countries and teach this material. Here's the lesson. So one of my favorite memories is building a tree fort in the backyard at that house with Dad. It was just the two of us building this crazy tree fort. And another one, we'd be laying and it's in the book. We would lay in the backyard on the grass, looking up at the sky, and he was teaching me how to make clouds disappear.
Wow.
it was really kind of cool. But the purpose of, I think what brings those memories into line for me is that, number one, the cloud thing, which will be in the book, you'll get it. It really teaches you the power of focus, to focus on one thing and let everything else around you go. There's a lot of power in that. If you can focus on one thing for a long period of time, really consistently, you can achieve incredible things.
Yes.
But when I look back to, like building the treehouse, here's the great thing about my father, and this is the lesson. Dad was always present. You know, when I was there and he was home, he was always present. He wasn't off thinking about something else or doing something that his mind was somewhere else when he was with me. He was always engaged and with me in the present moment, and that's a gift. Not everybody can do that. I have this sand timer behind me, and I actually have a sand timer on the cover of the book. And I don't say anything inside the book about the sand timer, but that sand timer to me represents my father. He often talked on stage that all we have is right now. The sand that's going through the middle part of the sand timer, all we have is right now. What's gone, what's down at the bottom is gone. It's past, it's behind us. We can't change it. What is ahead? We don't know how much there is or what that's going to be, other than where we direct things. What we have control over is the present moment, right now. And what can we do right now to live our best life, to be engaged with those that we love, that we're with? And that's how Dad always was. He lived in the present moment. And that's a gift. It's a special gift.
It's absolutely a gift. And, most people don't. Most people are caught up with, including me from time to time, caught up in, what's going on in your head, the chatter, distractions, the challenges, that we forget the present moment. And the sad thing is, and I love that with this, the sand timer that you've shared that story. Thank you so much for sharing. The less we are in the present, our time is going, our life is going, and it goes so quickly. And all we have is this present moment.
Right.
And we can either be here and experience it and really experience life. And there is a gift in that. Every present moment has a gift. And it reminds me of a challenge that I had recently, actually, a health challenge just a couple of months ago. That was just, my face just started to blow up, Brian. Like it was just out of this world for no reason. And nobody knew why. Mm-hmm. And it was such a gift because there was nothing I could do about it. The only thing I could do is be in the present. I couldn't, if I resisted it, it wouldn't help. If I fought against it, it wouldn't help. All I could do, what it taught me was just to be present. And, it is what it is. And what is here right now in this moment, that is a gift.
Right.
And every moment has a gift. What a beautiful lesson. And for Bob.
Yeah. When we talk about that, I can remember one of the conversations I had with Dad around this. We were talking about forgiveness and, how things in our past affect us. And Dad had a really good thing. It was so good. He always said that, you need to forgive whatever's happened in the past. We've all had bad stuff happen to us. We've had things that didn't go the way we planned. That's a natural part of just being a human being on this planet. And, Dad had bad things happen to him. He never hung on to them. He never let them control who he was. I've seen people that have had bad things happen and they make it a part of their identity. And he said, the best thing you can do is to release that. Just let it go. Forgive it. You don't need to forget, but you can forgive it. Let it go for yourself. He said, he always made a great statement to me. He said, Brian, you can never change the time you got out of bed this morning. And I love that. You cannot change the time. You can't change what's happened in the past. It is what it is. All you can do is direct what's happening at the moment. And he says, so many people are in turmoil and anxiety because they're not living in the present moment. They're either living in a future that they're fearing or reliving a past that wasn't good. But if you focus on the present moment right now, what can you do that's good right now? What can you do to step out and be the best version of you? Your life is going to be tremendous. And there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. What can you do in this present moment? What can you do right now to make a difference to your own life, to other people's life? What is it that you can do right now? So you can't change the time that you got up out of bed this morning, but you can change how you experience right now and what you do with it. What a lesson. What a lesson. And I love that you brought up forgiveness, because in my experience, a lot of people get stuck. I don't believe in the word stuck, but are so caught up in not knowing how to forgive. How has Bob taught you? How has your father taught you to let go and forgive?
Well, so I actually wrote a whole chapter on this because it's an important lesson. So it's all in there. But the essence of it is, like I said, you don't need to forget. And when you forgive, you're not letting, let's say somebody hurt you in the past, you're not letting that person off the hook. What you're doing is you're forgiving, you're releasing that negative energy from your own being. And it's really important that we do that. And sometimes we need to forgive ourselves for things we've possibly done. One of the things I wrote in the book was I was in a relationship several years ago that was not good. Somebody hurt me really, really badly. And I stayed in that relationship way longer than I should have. And I did it for the wrong reasons. I was thinking, I said that I was staying in it because I want to make sure I tried everything I could. At the end of the day, when I was honest with myself, I stayed in it because I was afraid of what other people would think. Oh, here Brian is, he failed another relationship. And I had to take ownership of that. And I had to not only forgive this person for hurting me, but I had to forgive myself for hanging in as long as I did, because I wasn't doing myself any good. And that's where Dad shared with me. He says, forgiveness isn't forgetting what they've done, but it is forgiving and letting that energy out of your body. Release it, let it go. I saw somebody put here, it is what it is. I love seeing that in the comment. Dad said that all the time. It is what it is. And it's really that simple. It is you cannot change what's happened in the past. So just live in the moment and do the best you can right now. And that's it. That's how you forgive. You just release, you let it go. And I'm not going to say it's easy. And I'm not going to say that it can happen overnight, but it can. The key is to focus on the present moment and just let it go. And to let that person just go to their best good. Don't think revenge. Don't think negative. Just let them go to their best good. And you live your life the way you want to live it. And, I get into a little more detail, obviously, in the book, but that's the essence of what it's all about.
Wow. I cannot wait to read that chapter of My Father Knew the Secret. So letting go, releasing the emotion for yourself, from yourself, letting that person go. Don't get caught up in any negative energy, revenge and all that stuff. It does more harm to you. Everyone's on their own journey, and also forgiving yourself. And releasing anything that is inside you about you, just letting go. And what you said is how you do that, stay in the present moment. So it comes back to that present moment. Yeah, wow. I'm loving
Dad always said, for everything bad, there's something good to it. And, he said there is no up without a down, a right without a left. I'm sure you've heard that many times. And he said, oftentimes, something bad, there's always going to be something good in it as well. And we just have to look for that. That's it. We just have to look for it.
Yes.
One of the chapters I wrote, I titled the chapter Living with Rose-Colored Glasses. And
yes.
that is by seeing the world in a positive light always, no matter what's going on. If you can see the world in a positive way, you're going to attract positive people into your life. We all know people that see all the negative in anything, and you don't want to be around them. It's just, they repel you. But if you can look at everything in a positive way, no matter what happens, Dad had terrible things happen to him at times, but he always looked for the positive. He always looked at everything with rose-colored glasses. And you just need to train your brain to do that. No matter what is going on, there's always something good. And if you can look for the good, you will find it, and your life will forever be different.
Absolutely. Train your brain. And one thing that, your father was an expert at, it was the D word, discipline. So it takes, discipline to train that mind and just keep it coming back to the present moment. And Stephen said that's a fantastic lesson. Let go and forgive. Wow. If anyone has a question, you can put your question in the comments. I can't guarantee that Brian will be able to answer them because he is very busy. Brian, what are the top 3 life lessons that you have learned from your father? I know there's way more than 3, but what would you love to share? And I'm sure they're all in the book.
They are.
What would you to share?
There's to give you the top 3. I can give you top 2 for sure, and then everything else is pretty much all on a level field, I think. So I'll tell you the number 1 thing. Both 1 and 2 are pretty close. Here's the thing. The most important thing I feel that I learned from Dad was to leave everybody with what he called the impression of increase.
Yes.
And that is that everybody you interact with, leave them feeling better that day because they interacted with you that day. If you can do that, my God, your world everybody's going to want to deal with you. I look at, I think, Stephen, I think I saw that you started reading the first chapter of the book. You just received it today or yesterday. That first chapter was, boy, that was a hard one for me to write. And Stephen, if you started that, you'll know why. Dad taught the impression of increase right until the day he left us. When he was in the hospital, he was in the ICU, and I was really fortunate. The nurses just let me stay in there with him for hours and hours and hours. You were only supposed to be there for an hour tops, I think, during the day, in a day. But they knew he was going, and so they just said, you can just stay there as long as you want. And I just stayed there with Dad, just holding his hand for hours. He would be awake and we would chat, and then he would just drift off to sleep for a while. An hour later, he'd wake up, we'd chat. Here was the cool thing. He was in a lot of pain. He was not doing well. He didn't like hospitals. You'll see in the chapter, we were actually able to bring him home so that, he could have his last couple of days at home. But when he was in the hospital, they had IVs all over the place in him, and they had to put more IVs in. And they were having a real tough time finding a vein to get the IV into. And if you know my dad, he does not like that stuff at all. And, most people would be pretty grumpy around that, especially when you're not feeling good. I'll never forget this one nurse in there, and she was trying to get this darn needle in a vein, and she couldn't. And she just kept poking them all over the place. And then she started to apologize, and she was feeling really bad. And I'll never forget, my dad put his hand on her hand. And he said, dear, don't worry. You're doing an amazing job. You just keep doing what you're doing. You'll find it. It's all good. I mean, he made her feel really good. He just told her what a great job she was doing. And he was like that right until he was gone. I mean, so that's a valuable lesson. I know that nurse would have walked out touched by that. When Dad left the hospital and he was going out, the ambulance people were taking him out. There was people in the hallway just to see him, to say goodbye, to touch him. Oh, I can't say a lot more about that right now, but it was really, really special. And it's because of how he treated these people. And that's a gift. And he did that right up until the day he was gone. That's a really special gift. The other thing, I guess, number 2 lesson is he was never shy about letting you know how he felt. You always knew you were loved. That was a gift. Not everybody's like that. Not everybody can do that. So he was always kind and loving, and no matter what was going on. And I remember as a youngster, the business was tough sometimes. He was struggling to get people in a room in the early days, and it wasn't always rosy like it was towards the end. At the end, he obviously he commanded the stage, and it was always full. But in the early years, it wasn't. And no matter what was going on, no matter how tight things may have been for him or whatever, he was always kind and loving. He never took the bad stuff out on anybody. Those are two really valuable lessons that stuck with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I had a feeling that this interview, this chat will there'll be some tears. Wow. How beautiful.
Well, all I can ask is, as I said in the beginning, this book isn't about me. And so I have no problem saying, please go out and buy the book, and buy the book for friends and relatives as well. It was so nice. You'll see in the book, my favorite number for whatever reason is 55. It's just, I've always thought it's a cool number. It sounded cool. And we actually had somebody the other day buy 55 books to give to family and friends and coworkers. And I thought, wow, how nice is that? But
Wow.
I promise you, this book will change your life. I'm super proud of it. And I'm proud of it because it's all about my father. And as I said in the beginning, it's a side of him that only I could tell. Corey said, Brian, you're the only one that can actually write this book. And it's true. Nobody else can. I've been with him for the entire thing. And I had a relationship with him different than anybody else.
Yeah.
So you're going to really get a unique take on who Bob Proctor was. And I think you will be pleasantly, I don't think you'll be surprised, but I think your heart will be warmed by it. And I know that there will be lessons in this book that if you practice them and take action on them immediately, your life will never be the same.
Absolutely, no doubt. So please get yourselves a copy. My father knew the secret. Get 55 copies. We have, because of the work that I have been doing, as a result of your father and, Proctor Gallagher Institute, one of our incredible clients has just achieved her big C-type dream, and one of her books is called 55 Faces. So it's interesting that the number 55 came up. This is just, wow. I can feel Bob in the room. It's just, yeah, absolutely. I just feel so honored to be right here with you, Brian, sharing so openly about one of the greatest, hands down, one of the greatest men that has ever walked this planet Earth. So just feel so honored. I'd love to just quickly share a little story about your father, because it's an experience that I've never ever had in my life before. And Brian, you might know, but this Facebook group was actually named after Bob Proctor's Millionaire Roundtable. So it used to be Bob Proctor's Millionaire Roundtable. And the reason why, after being so fortunate to sit in his roundtable with a group of another 10, 15 people, it was the most profound, the experience in my life that, even though it was for just an hour, that had stretched me and took me way over anything that I have ever imagined in terms of my success. Even though I've got, degrees and have studied, none of that was anywhere near what I experienced in Bob Proctor's Millionaire Roundtable. And I remember the first time that I actually won a seat to be there. And I was so excited, and I knew I would, because my intention was so strong. Something had to change. Something had to change in me. I was sick and tired of myself. And it was something that I was just so looking forward to. And so I did not dare be late. I was prepared that day. And, I walked into the room, and even though your father knew me before that, he didn't really know me. It was like a hi. And, he knew a little bit about me, but didn't really know me. And when I walked in the room, all the seats on the round table were taken. This is one of my favorite stories. And the only two seats, I would not dare sit right next to the Bob Proctor back then. But the only two seats that were available was one to the left side of your father and the one right next to the right side of your father. And I'm like, oh gosh, what do I do now? I have to sit next to Bob. And the meeting had not started yet. And I was sitting there quietly, and, Bob was to the right of me, and he was there sitting there quietly too. And even before the meeting had started, even before Bob had said a word, even before anyone had asked him a question, it was an experience. I'm just getting chills, goosebumps all over my body just thinking back. It was an experience that I had never, ever felt in my life. Your father had a vibration that, to me, my mind was confused, because there was a human being next to me, which was the great Bob Proctor, but the feeling, the vibration that was emanating from him was not human. Mm-hmm. It was out of this world. It was a peace. It was almost divinity. The closest I've come to divinity, to experience divinity in this physical form. And just that experience next to him is something that I will never, ever, ever forget. It's something that I think we should all aspire to being, to have an impact on someone without even saying a word. And I would imagine even people that did not know who Bob Proctor was, him just being near them, they would feel that vibration of peace, I can't even explain what it was, that vibration of love, of everything is okay. And even that energy that he emanated, I believe, would change people. It was just incredible. And of course, I won't share the whole meeting. That meeting unfolded in just a miraculous way, and ended with, Bob, really, I felt like I asked him a question, and I felt like he had pulled out all of my organs out of my body, shook them up and threw them back in. It was like I could not explain, but I was changed. And what was even more incredible about your father was, I was just starting out in my business. I wasn't one of his top people. I wasn't bringing his company that much profit back then. But he took the time at lunchtime. He had, Doug go out and find me. And he brought me into the room, and he said, I've been thinking about you. And he gave to me in a way that no other, as a child, no other adult, no other teacher, no other, university lecturer, no other coach has ever given to me before. Mm-hmm. And even though I hadn't known him for a long time, I always refer to Bob as a dear friend, because there was no other person that gave me that care and attention. I mean, I've got so many incredible people in my life that absolutely love me and, absolutely incredible. But as a mentor, no one ever gave that love and attention and care to the depth that Bob Proctor did. And I'm so great. I will always be grateful to him to the day that I die. My nephews know him. My nephews are listening to his material. They know my story. And I'm also so, so, so grateful to you, Brian, for being with us today, and for sharing your time, sharing My Father Knew the Secret. Thank you so much for writing that book. We all miss Bob, those of us that knew him, those of us that are only finding out about him. We all miss him in the physical realm, and your book is going to continue that legacy and continue the profound impact that your father has had on the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Suzana. You know, I remember that meeting that you were talking about, and you know, let's face it, my father was a force. He was a force, and what you just shared is an example of his impression of increase, making you feel special, and he can do it without even saying a word. It's just his way of being. And boy, if we can all live like that, and we can, it's just, if you emanate love, if you just come from that right place and be like that everywhere you are, people will feel it and you will touch lives. And, you know, it's wonderful hearing how he touched your life. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I so believe in that. You know, if we all strive to live in that way, or even just, you know, it doesn't even take everybody, we can change the world. We can change the world for the better. We can change each other's lives, even without saying anything. And you know, by leaving everybody with an impression of increase, what more can you ask? We change ourselves too, don't we? So, yeah.
Sure. Well, I thank you very much for bringing me on. I really hope you all go out and get a copy of the book. And when you do, go to brianproctor.com. You can actually enter in, you know, where you bought the book. There'll be some bonuses and stuff for you. There is a contact us on that page, and I would love to hear what you think of it. I will see every comment that's made. Anytime you send in a comment or contact us, that will come to me. I will see it. And I will do my very best to get back to all of you. But I would love to hear what you think once you get your hands on it.
Thank you so much. brianproctor.com, amazon.com. I'll be sharing the links as soon as we get off this live in the comments below. Please, please, please get yourself a copy of My Father Knew the Secret. Get yourself 55 copies and share them with the world, because this book will change not only your life, but you know, the world. Again, thank you so much, Brian. You know how much I respect you, adore you. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us today. And I look forward to delving into your book this weekend.
All right.
Thank you for the gift of you also. We've talked about Bob Proctor, but you also are a huge gift to anybody that knows you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I'll put the comments in the, I'll put the links in the comments in the next few minutes. Bye-bye. Have the most wonderful day, the most wonderful weekend. And remember to live in the present moment, let go, forgive yourself, and forgive all of those that have hurt you in any way. Thank you. Bye-bye.